So you want to launch your personal brand, but you don't want to come off to know-it-all-y, salesy. You want to attract the right audience and be authentic along the journey. And that's why I have on today Reid Holmes, who recently launched his book, Appreciated Branding, Transforming Your Brand from Ignored to Irreplaceable. So Reid, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to dive into all things appreciated branding because while I think it really focuses a little bit more on businesses, I think there's such great correlations we can make with personal branding here. But first, I want to ask, what was kind of the inspiration, the catalyst that you had for this concept of appreciated branding? What is it, and kind of how did you come up with this?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it comes down, it's a couple of things kind of, the confluence of a few different things that were happening in my life. One, as a creative director, 30 years in ad agencies, the job is very fun and can be very rewarding. But after a while, it's a lot of ephemeral work that's just comes out and people see it. And hopefully it's good and people like it. But it goes away, and it helps a lot of other businesses make a lot more money. So you do that for a while, and it's fun. You get to go out on TV shoots, and you get to, call your mom and say, "Did you see my commercial?" That kind of thing. But after 30 years, it's kind of like, I don't need to go to someplace for another week and be away from my family to shoot another commercial. And that sounds, I don't know, that maybe that sounds too, kind of, I don't know, preposterous or presumptuous or whatever the P word is that I can't think of right now. But it's real. As your kids grow up, you realize how important that time is, and that's the other facet of it. Is I had I have a son, and then I have twins who are 4 years younger, boy and a girl. And about a year ago, my oldest son graduated from college, and my two younger kids graduated from high school. And I was kind of like going, what have I done to leave behind? How am I making this world a better place?
Mm.
And so that was another thing. And then the third piece that kind of came together is I had this realization. I really wanted to find a way to not correct, but help chart a better path for marketing, because marketing kind of started in our kind of modern world in the 50s with the soap opera, and that was a welcome interruption because people wanted the products that they could get to use with their new electric washing machine. They needed these ancillary products. Now it's 60, 70 years later, and and in those days you might get hit with 300 messages a day. We're all getting pelted with at least 10,000 messages a day. It's crazy. I mean, our phones are pinging. Sorry, that's 10,001, as my friend said this morning. It's getting out of control. And I just thought, gosh, if I'm a business, how am I going to break through this pollution of messages everywhere? And even as an individual trying to get noticed for a business and for your own personal brand, how are you going to break through and be cared about? Because that's really what it comes down to. I start getting all these pings and things. I don't care about them until, here's a picture of my daughter. See, I care about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But how do I get a message that I think people will care about? And when I look back at the work I did, and I looked at a lot of work that a lot of other companies did that I was kind of jealous of and I thought was really powerful, there was a central theme to it, and it aspired to be to earn appreciation. It was useful, it was helpful, it was proactive, it was in some cases generous, it was understanding, it was and this is the key point, from the consumer's point of view, from an empathetic place. So that was kind of the birth of this idea called appreciated branding. And so I really started looking into, okay, who's doing this and who's doing it well? And how could I kind of hang a name on it so that others can use this approach in their marketing? And in that sense, I think make the world a better place, because, it's not necessarily purpose-driven marketing, unless you think the purpose of marketing is to get better results by breaking through more meaningfully. It's not just altruistic. So one example might be, the difference is yes, it's very nice when out of corporate generosity, a company decides to plant $10 million worth of trees in the rainforest. That's really great. That's really nice. But there's no immediate meaningful benefit to me as a consumer of that brand.
Mm.
Now, an appreciated brand approach might be, we're going to spend $10 million to plant trees in the neighborhoods where we have our best customers. Now I can send them a note and say, hey, not for nothing, but this tree that's going up that is going to be here for the next 100 years. It's going to create shade. It's going to do all these things. And it's because we appreciate you. And we hope you'll appreciate us for doing it. What a
Mm.
billboard that is. Now, every time you go by that tree, you're going to think, let's say it was the Home Depot or, Home Depot. Wow. I appreciate them. I like them.
Yeah.
So that's the genesis of it. That's the genesis of appreciated branding.
Yeah. I love that. I love the word empathy too that you mentioned there, because as I've studied the art of personal branding, two main elements to it have been authenticity and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And really, empathy reflects then in your marketing efforts, in the content that you publish, in the words that you use. But empathy really is driven by understanding who your target market is and what their needs are. It's really the only way you can empathize with
It's
them, right? Is you
it's
need to know
coming
that.
from their point of view.
Right.
It's coming from their point of view, and there are all kinds of opportunities to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm going to run off the mouth
Well,
here.
no, this is
I'll
this
just.
is your time. You go ahead.
Well, there was a lot of, I don't know what the demographic of your audience is, but one of the first viral company screw ups, and you might remember it, Dave, is United Breaks Guitars. I don't know if you remember that, but there was back in the 2000s, back when YouTube was new or relatively new. There's still not the bandwidth we have today, but United Airlines flew a musician and his prized Taylor guitar from, I don't know, Toronto to who knows where. I don't. It doesn't matter. And to his horror, he sat on the plane and watched them load it on there like it was a side of beef. And when he got it back, it was broken and it was not well taken care of. And he reached out to them and they just said, "Yeah, sorry." And what they didn't realize is that he had a voice now. He could get out there and say, United kind of blew it. And a lot of people would pay attention. This one-way conversation that used to be happening between companies and their customers. They did not take an empathetic point of view. They just took, we're the company. This is what happened. Sorry. What they should have done is been proactive and empathetic and said, oh my gosh, this should never have happened. I'm so sorry. We're going to buy you a new guitar and we're going to fly you anywhere on your next flight for free.
Right.
And what would have happened is, instead of him posting a video of a song he wrote called United Breaks Guitars, which went viral,
I
he
bet.
probably would have posted, hey, United rocks. They blew it, but boy, did they really try to fix it.
Yeah.
That's how you build brands today. And that's how you build personal brands today. It's through proactive, wow, unexpected, empathetic understanding of where I am and what I need. And that's how you break through. You earn appreciation by doing something that will be appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the kind of defining the appreciation and understanding how you can come across as empathetic, not just come across, but be empathetic, really dr- it drives down to the idea of, do you understand your target market and what their
Mm-hmm.
needs are? Is there practices that you see of how to best understand that? Because it sounds like, in order to, again, be empathetic and kind of practice appreciated branding, means you need to be taking actions that your audience will appreciate. So is there kind of a first step that we need to be thinking about in how we start to practice appreciated branding?
Yeah, and one way that I talk about it is through values. So companies should have established values, things that they believe in, as they go through their day to day, as they guide their employees. It's the break room poster, whatever. It's the, we believe in, this, and this. And you want your customers to share those values. And if you can talk to them on what I call a values channel, they're going to pay more attention to it because they're already interested in it, right? It's already something that tweaks them. Maybe they like adventure. Like if I were Patagonia, adventure might be one of my values. Obviously, we all know Patagonia also has, and it's probably an overused example, but I'll use it anyway. Um, they already have a well-known stance for wanting to help the environment. That's a value. So you find those values where you overlap with a constituency of people, your values overlap with them, and that's how you start to build that connection. Um, Clearly, United didn't value the experience of this person, and maybe it's because they didn't value music or they didn't value whatever. I don't know, but one of their values should have been that the things that go on our planes come off intact, and if they don't, we'll fix it. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
uh, so it's that kind of thing. So it can start with values, but the other thing that can give help kind of give rise to an effort is some data point, and this happens in more in bigger kind of package good advertising and marketing. But then I can give you another example of more of a personal branding example from the book.
Mm.
This first one was, and I use this in the book, but there's a laundry detergent in India called Ariel. I think it's a Procter and Gamble product. They compete with another brand of laundry detergent called Surf in India, and they each spend millions, alternating on spending to try and get a little more right of the decimal point growth and share and whatever. And one year, the folks at Ariel, and I would bet it was probably their ad agency, and maybe they were asked to find this data point. But the data point was in India, 95% of the population still thought laundry was a woman's job, and that is everybody who hears that says, "Wait, somebody should fix that. That's probably not right."
Right.
Ariel decided to fix it. And that's part of what appreciated branding is finding bigger problems to solve that you can help fix as a brand. Use your voice, use your efforts, use some of your ad budget, use whatever to try and proactively help a constituency that will support you and appreciate you doing that. And so in the case of this uh, detergent, Ariel, they launched a campaign they called Share the Load. It was a hashtag Share the Load. They had some commercials that talked about, that kind of dramatized how, women were not only doing the laundry now still, but they're coming home from work, they're answering emails, they got to get dinner on the table, they're picking up crap from the floor. And, these commercials ran and just said, why is laundry still only a woman's job? And their sales went up in the first year of this campaign. You want to take a guess?
How
76%.
oh, geez.
76%.
Yeah. There's some ROI for
Now,
you.
yeah. Now, a smaller example of this is, and this one, I can't remember where I heard it, but, and so it might be something your audience has heard before, but it is what I would call an appreciated branding effort. So this guy was starting a real estate business, and he wanted to become a known and trusted real estate agent in a certain area. And he had been buying the bus benches with his name and his, picture and the billboards, and he'd been sending out direct mail saying, "Hey, I'm in your neighborhood," or I work in your neighborhood, and if you need an agent, call me, whatever. And he just could not get traction. So what happened is he realized, or he discovered, that there was a garbage strike going on in the neighborhoods that he wanted to serve. So he decided, well, maybe instead of spending all my money on this advertising that seems to just pollute the world, it doesn't get me traction. Why don't I pay for a truck to come and pick up these people's garbage for them? And that's what he did. And he didn't advertise it. He didn't say anything. He just said, I think word might get out, hey, the strike's over. Actually, we don't know who picked it up. Well, who's going to figure that out? They figure it out. He starts getting calls. Hey, I want to pay you for what you did for me for pick up my garbage. And he said, no need to pay me. Just think of me when you need a real estate agent, or someone who needs a house, or you want to sell a house or whatever. And within a year, he had $1 million book of business. So that is how you break through. That is how you get cared about. you care about others, and you prove to them that you care about them, that is how you get cared for. And that's what brands, and I think personal brands, need to do, is proactively find things they can do and solve.
Hey, Dave here, obviously, but I want to just pause this episode real quick and say thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Brand Science. I hope that you're getting as much value as a viewer or a listener as I've gotten as a host. And if you are getting value from this episode, it must mean that you enjoy nerding out on all things personal branding, content creation, and strategy, which means you're my type of person. So I want to connect. Once you're done this episode, go down to the show notes where you'll find my LinkedIn profile. Click on that link, head over to my profile, and send me a request. When you send the request, there'll be that little pop-up that comes up that you can add a note in the request. Just tell me that you found me from a Brand Science episode so I know that you are one of those loyal, awesome listeners of mine. And let's connect and learn together. Anyway, just want to say, love you. Thanks for listening. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And back to the episode. Yeah, I love this idea too, because this is the core element of what we're seeing right now in like the content strategy, content marketing realm, specifically with personal branding, is this idea of, I mean, Gary Vee has his concept of like jab, 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 right hook, which is essentially like give, then ask, right? So it's this idea of, I'm going to give you a ton of free value through free content, free resources, free giveaways and lead magnets and such. So much so that you feel almost indebted to me because you've improved my life so much. One, you almost feel like, oh, I almost need to work with this person. I need to buy their course because it just feels like I've been improving my life so much for free. I almost owe it to them. But two, the next time that they have that problem, who's the first person they're going to think of is the person who's just been like feeding them this free value this whole time. So yeah, this idea of give, to the point where they are just connected to you emotionally, but also like career wise, they almost feel like they require your content in order to succeed. Then it's a logical next step for them to work with you. And this concept too of like empathy and knowing what the customer wants, what your lead wants, kind of going back to it with the idea of if you are the future version of what you're trying to get your lead to, you were them 5-10 years ago. I feel that's the easiest way to kind of empathize, is because you went through it yourself, right? So you know all the feelings they're going through, all the mistakes they're going through. So on personal brands, it's a matter of like kind of just looking back at, okay, what was the shit that I spent way too much time trying to do, but then found out that the hard way that wasn't the way to do it, and then I found a solution. How do I just turn that into content and make sure my client avoids that? So I love that idea. Is there cases where, I know in this like PC era or kind of the woke era, if you will, where brands try to take an approach of being like an appreciated brand by taking a stance on a topic that maybe didn't land well. I look back to like the Pepsi commercial where it was like back, I think, over COVID, and they had like one of the Jenners in the commercial, and it just was very tone deaf.
Unself-aware. Tone
Yeah.
deaf.
So
Yes,
like,
that's a better way to put it.
are there ways you can do this poorly that you should be thinking about, and how
Yes.
to make sure you're doing it correctly?
It has to be, and this word gets used so much, but it does for a reason. It has to be authentic to your own values.
Yeah.
So look at Bud Light, right? Bud Light, somebody at Bud Light thought it would be a good idea, and on its face, it's not a bad idea to try and support a constituency of people who have typically and historically been underrepresented or undersupported. And in this case, they decided to allow a transgender person, I think, to get a can designed in the tradition of kind of, I think I don't know the specifics of it, but I do know that it backfired spectacularly. I mean, you had Kid Rock putting a case of of this beer and just shooting at the hell out of it with his AR-15, and the video goes viral, and all of a sudden, Anheuser-Busch and AB InBev is losing share by the minute in Bud Light, and it's a real, shot in the foot. And the question that was not asked that could have prevented this problem is this something our core constituency would appreciate? And the answer to that would be no.
Yeah.
You sell a ton of beer to people who don't really care about LGBT issues, and they don't care about these people. And that's neither right nor wrong from a marketer's point of view. It just is. It's just the truth. So if you're going to tie yourself to that issue, you better make sure that people that you want to attract or keep will appreciate you doing that. So, doing good for good's sake often isn't necessarily going to perceive that way by the constituencies you're trying to attract. So, as an example, if this guy, this real estate agent, had paid to have all of the trash removed in the neighborhood where all the striking trash workers work, that would have not been received very favorably. They would not have appreciated
I was wondering about that. Yeah, then the trash people get mad at him because
it would have backfired. So you got to make sure that the actions you take will be appreciated. And it's as small as and innocuous as the old free pen, with your logo on it. Thanks, I need a pen. I appreciate that. Thank you. But it could be a need to be thing. But here's the other point I wanted to make. Products and the things that they deliver, or as a personal brand, the service you deliver is only as differentiated as it is how crowded the category is. So if you are, and I'll use the laundry detergent again, because right now, walk into any grocery store and there's a 30-foot long aisle, 10 feet high, with 100 different branded things that solve the same problem, right? And all that's happening is certain brands with deeper pockets are trying to be more, create more awareness, and maybe even have bigger sales to try and drive market share or whatever. The way to differentiate yourself there is not through a rational product appeal. They all have their own little differences, but they all result in clean clothes. The solution is what I would call a unique emotional solution. So you need to solve a problem that is more on the emotional side than on the rational side. And a unique emotional solution is a way for a brand to say, I know you haven't thought about it this way, but this is really what we're about. Now, here's another example. Snickers. Snickers was, for years, their line was packed with peanuts. Snickers really satisfies. That's a very rational promise. It's a category promise for any candy bar that has peanuts and chocolate in it, and there are many. You have many options to choose from. 15, 20 years ago, I don't know how long ago it was now, Snickers realized they needed to go in a different direction, and they invented, or actually they found a data point that they built an entire unique emotional solution on. And this is, again, back to this idea of a data point. They figured out that a lot of people, when they get hungry, they're not perform at their best. They're kind of bonking. They're kind of like out of gas. They're not being their true selves and their best, giving their best performance. So they came up with this insight: you're not yourself when you're hungry. And all of a sudden, they have this huge platform, and it's not about an indulging sweet product anymore. It's about solving a problem in your life that this brand, because they've staked out that they chalked off that field for themselves, they get to own. And this became a global campaign. Their sales continue to grow. Another great example of this is finding that data point and building an entire campaign and brand out of it is Dove's campaign for real beauty. So back in 2004, Dove and I was talking to someone who was a part of this recently, when I wish I had talked to her before I wrote the book about this, because this case is in the book. But she basically said the client came into the room one day and said, my daughter is turning 14 and she thinks she has an ugly body. And that's not right. That's not cool. And that was the impetus that gave birth to this idea, the campaign for real beauty, which is, beauty is not only skin deep. There's much more to it. And Dove launched this platform based on other insights, like only 4% of women in the world thought they were beautiful. It's tragic. It's tragic. It shouldn't be the case.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you kind of go, well, we think people would really, our constituency would really appreciate someone advocating for the fact that you don't have to have, the porcelain skin and the perfect blonde haired beach body. And that's not the only definition of beautiful. And, they went from a $2.5 billion brand to now a $6 billion brand. Now, I'm still trying to think about how to tie this more into personal branding. I have one other example I
I
could
think
give you, but
I think I might be able to make the link, because a lot of what we do at my agency Zen Post is for our clients is we give it we understand who you are at your core and what your history is, and like really what makes you tick, what makes you get out of the bed in the morning, what's like your innate skill sets, and then we help kind of craft what we believe you should become synonymous with. And that's really this kind of what you're talking about here is when people think of you, what's the word that we want people to think of when they think of you? What is the synonymous concept? And so that might be like systems or honesty. These are just ways to attach yourself to a value. And then once you have that concept, what is that synonymous word that we want you to be attached to? Now it's a matter of like actually living through that synonymous word through your content, the actions you take, the points that you care about, the words that are in your content and the type of content you create. It should just bleed through everything you do, so much
right,
so that every time people consume content from you, they see that kind of living inside of it, and they associate you with that concept. So I see that, when it comes to like Dove and, just natural beauty, and beauty is kind of the synonymous concept. Every one of their commercials is just like that concept is just the heartbeat of what it does. Or, with Snickers, I always see, the idea of you're not you when you're hungry. And that's all of their commercials. And it's the concept of like Snickers will fill you up. That's what we want to get across. Let's bleed that into everything we do. So really, I think for personal branding, the kind of core lesson here is like, what's the one thing that you just want to be associated with? It's not just your offer, yes, but also what about your offer that makes it unique, or specifically you, what's unique to you that's very valuable, that you want people to understand, and then make sure that that's just part of everything you do. So is that, I guess, like in terms of appreciated branding too, is that, do you see that as like a campaign, or is that something that just becomes the part of the identity of the brand in perpetuity?
it's got to be the identity of the brand, because you can't just suddenly, you know, you can't say one day, you know what, I'm not going to be the Dave Polikoff I've been before. I'm going to be, I'm going to start
Right.
caring about something else.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to go, what happened to Dave? Like, I thought he was all about this.
Right.
Um,
And
you
that's
know,
where I think the idea of inauthenticity comes in too. People can tell, like the Pepsi thing, is all of a
yeah,
sudden you're going straight, and all of a sudden you veered off this way, or this feels very
yeah,
ingenuine
yeah.
and
It
inauthentic.
has to, it has to feel like it's, well, again, authentic. It has to feel germane to what they know you to be. And if it isn't, then trust starts to get questioned. And you know, it's like the Charlie Sheen thing. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but 10 or 15 years ago,
Tiger blood
Charlie
and all that
Sheen.
stuff.
What's that?
Didn't he was something about tiger blood and
Yeah, yeah. Like, he was this guy that was known as this, just like the character on the show he played, is just a philandering kind of playboy.
Yeah.
And then one day he just cracked. He just became somebody else. And everyone's just like, what the hell happened to Charlie Sheen? And you have to be, you represent the values that you have always held dear. Values are timeless. Values are, you know, uh, the way other people fit you into their brain in the world. You become friends with somebody, and that's essentially what a brand is. It removes the risk. It removes um, the unknowns. It helps create a sense of a guarantee of an outcome because of that familiarity and that meaning. And if you start changing, sending cross signals on that stuff, you're going to be causing. I mean, people will give you some time. This is when I think about bands. This is a great example because bands are slightly different than brands in a sense. I have to write this down. I may be onto something here, but let me just kind
Yeah,
of go
good.
on.
Yeah.
Brands reinvent themselves to create new relevance and new, new what's the word I'm looking for? Awareness or whatever. By trying to reinvent new little things, new little rational things. It's got, the dog food now. It has power pellets, but it's still good old, ex dog food. And they use these things to try and reinvent themselves. You don't need to do that. You can do it in a more creative way, where you're just talking about the things you value in a different way. And this is where people have to give bands grace. So if you look at the eras of bands, let's say U2, for example, the U2 of 1987 and the Joshua Tree is very different from the U2 of pop or, and I'm probably aging myself here. I don't know how much, but the point being, every band, once they've done an album, they've done that album. They want to do something different. And then their fans go, wait a minute, I knew you for this kind of stuff. Why are you
Yeah.
screwing it up? You
Yeah.
know? Um, and it's because they want to grow and they want to do something different. They don't want to get pegged into a certain hole. With brands, familiarity is money. Familiarity is risk removal. Familiarity is, I know what to expect, and therefore I know that my money is not going to be misplaced here if I buy something from these people. That's the value of a brand, and the more important value of a brand is that familiarity, that logo, which is now familiar and has some emotional meaning behind it, will get more noticed when you're promoting something because of that familiarity. So the Dove case, when they stopped after 2 years of the campaign for Real Beauty, they thought, well, we're spending all this money on brand, and I don't think we're getting anything for it. So they stopped spending money on brand and put it all into promotional advertising. It gets your hair softer, whatever, all these things. And they flatlined, and they got a study from I think it was Nielsen, who did some research and figured out that for every dollar they spent on brand, they were getting 4x the results. So they realized the brand was doing a huge service to their promotional advertising, because now when people saw their promotional advertising, they didn't think someone was just trying to sell them something. They thought someone who mattered and who cared and who was trying to do good things in the world was trying to sell them something. And that made all the difference. And that's kind of the root of it. So proactive, empathetic, generosity, kindness, those are the things that drive a lot of human connection. And humans want nothing if to not try and be a better version of themselves tomorrow than they were today. So the way, to the extent that any brand can facilitate that, be it a personal brand or a big brand, the future will be yours, because people who want something and are just interrupting you to try and get it, they don't get appreciated. They just get ignored. And they might get tried, and then they like, well, this product did its job, but I don't even remember who I bought it from. It's
Right.
You're not going to get repeat business. You're not going to get loyalty. You're not going to get uh, all the things that come with being a known entity.
So we talked about the importance of appreciated branding, how to not do it right, and how to do it right. And you keep going back to the idea of these brands found like a data point that informed what the campaign should be. I mean, that data point aligned with the core value, one of the core values of the business already. But from someone who wants to get into appreciated branding and wants to start exercising that, what are some data points, and maybe we can kind of lean again a little bit more on the personal branding side, that they should be looking at to go, okay, where, because there could be a lot of different approaches to what they should be investing their time and money into with an appreciated branding effort. How do they decide where they should be putting their money and time for an appreciated branding campaign or just kind of an ongoing effort?
The key question to ask is, what do your customers or the people you want to be customers need help with that isn't necessarily your specific product, but it's ancillary to it? Here's another example. A guy was trying to build a business as a tennis coach. He wanted to build a tennis coaching business. And this is a story from a mentor of mine that I've worked with as I'm trying to learn how to become a speaker and kind of get out on stages more. And he said that this guy came to him and said, "Steve, I'm not getting the traction. What do I do?" And Steve said, and this is something I had already written, so I don't feel like I'm taking it from him, but he said, "What problem can you solve for them through your tennis lessons that they don't know they need to be solved, or they haven't realized that it needs to be solved?" And they realized that there's a lot of parents with young kids, who could use a break, and their kids are bouncing off the walls. And so suddenly they marketed this tennis coach as giving parents a break and teaching kids a lifelong um, sport and returning them to their parents worn out. And his business took off. So he basically found a problem that of a constituency of people that he could help with, niched it down. Niching down is a big deal, particularly I think for personal brands. And I'm in the midst of building my own. So,
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot of this too and trying to apply it to myself as a personal brand. But you have to niche down who are you trying to help, and what is an issue that hasn't been addressed for them that you could potentially help with that they would appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the heart of it, I think. So yeah, the data points take time to find. The data points aren't just necessarily laying there. Sometimes they're easy to find. Sometimes you may be a personal brand that is I don't know, name someone who's trying to build a personal brand around what, I don't know, pick something.
Oh, yeah, a fitness
Baking.
trainer.
Friend of mine's baking. She does a lot of baking, and she's trying to do baking classes. So one of the things that she does now is she offers she's put together a trip to Ireland for people who want to go not only just learn how to cook and cook Irish food, but love to travel. And she's selling it out because now this is an excuse for people to go take a trip. And she's the host. She's the brand. She's the one that creates the whole experience. So she's solving a couple problems for these people. One is, give me a reason to go somewhere, make it enriching. Most people who love to cook want those different tastes and experiences, and it gives them an excuse to go do it. So that's just right off the top of my head. It may not be the best example, but it is an example. And
Yeah.
so if there's others,
It's
we can talk
interesting.
about it.
You mentioned, in some cases, this appreciated branding approach is what's something new I can do to kind of to practice this appreciated branding technique. It's something I'm not currently doing. In the case of like the realtor, let me go pick up people's trash right now, and that is something separate from what he does, but it is a way to capture that attention and appreciation. And then there was a couple examples where you're not doing anything new, you're just reworking your branding to fit a new angle that people better appreciate. So in the tennis instructor's case, it's not learn to be a better tennis player. It's have a little break time from your kids for an hour and a half. And that that hits a more emotional chord than learn
Yeah.
to be a better tennis player. Not maybe that's not everyone's key selling point, but it certainly is for many people who have kids. So is that another way to look at this as well? Is, hey, maybe if I'm not capturing the attention that I want for my target audience, maybe it's not just what my offer is, but maybe I just have to remarket it in a way that is a little bit more emotional, that practices that appreciation tactic a little bit more, so it draws people in a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to that is it motivating? Is what you're doing something that sparks uh, energy and releases tension? Uh, that's what you got to find. There is tension in the fact that women are still doing the laundry. There is tension in the fact that parents just don't get a break. There's not a lot of tension in the fact that I want to be a better tennis player. There's nothing motivating me to want to do that immediately. I mean, it's like, yeah, I would like to be, but right now I got to go, you know, take my kid to soccer or something, or whatever. Um, I need to do something that's part of my responsibility as an adult. There needs to be some inherent tension in what you're trying to solve, that you then get to be the beneficiary of as the brand.
Nice. Love this. Well, Reid, this has been a great combo. I think to kind of summarize everything today is like the concept of appreciated branding is to really understand your target market, to understand what they will appreciate, and then ensure that that's kind of then diagramming with some of the core values that you already believe, and then just kind of live that through your branding, through your copywriting, and through the actions you take as a brand.
Yeah, no,
Before we sign off, though, I just want to make sure if people wanted to connect with you, your services, find your book, where should they go?
yeah. So I just wanted, before I say that, I want to chime in on one thing you said, which is very powerful, and I don't want people to overlook it, because this is something
Sure.
that the great Roy Spence of the agency in Texas, GSD&M, once told me. If you can boil your brand down to that one word, that one thing, that's how you make a difference. It simplifies, it filters, it funnels, it does all the things that you need to do to appeal to people with a like mind. So when I asked him, I sat down to interview with him, and I said, "You've got Southwest Airlines, you've got Walmart, you've got Chili's, you've got all these brands, and you're the president of this agency. How do you remember each of them from phone call to phone call when they're each calling you every day, and what they mean and what they're supposed to be about?" And he said, I encapsulate each of them with one word. Southwest is freedom. Walmart is value. And so that's how he gets into the headspace of what each brand is supposed to mean and how to have that conversation. It's the same thing here. And I think for a personal brand, that's a very powerful thing. What is your one value, your one emotional kind of stake in the ground that then you can use as your North Star for the content you create, the kind of customers you want to go after, what appeals to them, all of that. So just wanted to put a finer point on that. The next question you had was about the book. This is the book. It's called Appreciated Branding, and it's available on Amazon right now. It was released about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was a #1 Amazon bestseller at that time, and I'm very proud of it. And it's got a lot of great stuff in it that can help a lot of your audience. The other thing, if you're interested, there's a pyramid, what I call the appreciation pyramid. It's in the book, but you can get a free download at appreciatedbranding.com. So you can go to appreciatedbranding.com and get that if someone's interested in seeing
There
how
you
that
go.
all works.
Giving
That's when I
away
talk
free
about the
value.
rational and the emotional. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's
Practice
right.
what you preach.
Yeah.
Love it. I appreciate you being on today, Reid.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Dave. Take care.
Yep.